Welcome to BelTalks. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for the premiere at Rotterdam, and thank you for sharing this great film with us. And we're privileged to have, we're the third festival in Serbia to have screened one of your films. Previous two were Palic, where you received the Underground Spirit Award. It was 2000 and I'm not sure, maybe you can help me with this.
Well, I went to Palitz to make the screening of El Futuro in 2014.
14, oh yeah.
But then I went back in 2015 in the moment of the Underground Spirit Award.
Yeah.
So they were two different years.
And also El Futuro was screened in competition in Pančevo Film Festival.
Pančevo, yeah.
So this is the third festival in Serbia that screens your work. So the newest film, The Year of the Discovery. And when I'm thinking about connecting El Futuro and this one, if I'm not mistaken, I think this idea of failed opportunity for a better society or hope that didn't materialize or some kind of betrayal or some kind of anticlimax, that's what's connecting them in a way. That's what I was thinking while I was watching this also.
Yeah, I mean, this project that I made on my own, because I started working with a collective, the Los Hijos Collective, with Natalia Marin and Javier Fernandez. We were doing a very different kind of cinema, even though these experimental documentaries that we made were related to history and land and identity. The work I made on my own, this El Futuro and Aliens and El Año del Descubrimiento, are really connected to they are made after the economical crisis of 2008 that arrived to Spain in 2010. So in that moment, and it's related to what you say, and that moment, the Spanish society, or maybe the European of the south, or of the south of Europe, sorry. I'm not sure, but in Spain, we felt that the country we were living since the 80s, I mean, the democracy that was built at the end of the decade of the 70s, it was disappeared. I mean, it was no longer existing anymore. I mean, the country I was born, I was raised, I studied, all the projects that I have collapsed because the economical crisis affected all the institutions and affected many generations and had a very hard social impact. So I made these films about Spanish recent history in a way of trying to understand what happened in that moment, because I was completely sure that the roots of this collapsing were built in the way democracy arrived to Spain. I mean, after the Franco dictatorship that lasted 40 years. And El Futuro was about that, about 1982. But also what is happening now in Spanish society, which is about not having hope and knowing people wants to believe that we are going to be a wealthy country again. But the real thing is that we are not going to have the situation that we have in the 90s or in the first years of the 2000s. So most of the situations that we are living now are also seated in decisions that were made in the 80s and the 90s. And 1992 is a moment where a lot of aspects were seated, I mean, implanted. So I was very interested in watching how was supposed to be happy year or glorious year, because we have all these wonderful international events like the Olympic Games or the Universal Exhibition, the Expo de Sevilla, were happening at the same time that Parliament of a region was burnt. because the main idea was that nobody knows in Spain that this situation happened, that this parliament was born. It's a completely forgotten event.
Yes, so but you're also very critical to the government that came after Franquism, actually, and I think this film points out why so many people lost their beliefs in their political allies.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was very interesting to me. I mean, that was also very sad to me because it's not a local thing; it's a global thing to me. That people are losing their allies because their political allies. Well, this guy was talking about how they never voted. The city never voted the left again, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe we can make that like a global thing out of it, and I think it's functioning on a global level also. So yes, if I'm not mistaken, of course, I mean that's one
Yeah,
of the.
yeah. I mean, it's very important that um, some. I mean, I try not to be super critical because, in a way, I have been part of that. I mean, and many people send their children to to their kids, their sons to the universities. I mean, there were some aspect of evolution in Spanish society in the 80s about healthcare system, about education. But at the same time, the economical model were completely linked to tourism. And now with the COVID, we are experimenting the situation that our whole model is based on tourism and uh, state investment. I mean, constructions of buildings and things like that. And the point is that the labor government, the socialist government, was the one who decided to dismantling all the industry sector and dismantling also the strength of the unions. So they took decisions that we could link, for example, to Margaret Thatcher in the UK. But as they were controlling all the main media, most of the society wasn't aware that these things were happening because everybody was very hopeful and very happy about the possibilities of being a wealthy country, being part of the European Union, having the Olympic Games, all these things. And of course, it's a pity because, as you said, there were a lot of social groups that felt abandoned many times. And there are regions that are underdeveloped since the 70s, and they didn't grow as other wealthy regions in Spain. So there is this inequality that just after the shooting of the film that was in November 2018, the far right party, Vox, had started to win in many places, and it has been part of the parliament of many regions, and now is the third party most voted in Spain. And also in the last election would have won the elections in Cartagena, in the place the film has been shot. So there is a absolute link between this feeling of being abandoned and voting very extreme, radical, right, fascist proposals, because these people really felt desperate, and they really felt that no politicians, no parties were listening to them. And this is frightening because we felt it in the shooting for the first time. I mean, there are some moments when you can listen to these housewives or these women saying that they don't understand how her mother like Franco dictatorship.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, they are saying that all their problems comes from the immigrants.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
that was also one of my questions was regarding the characters, but maybe we'll come to that later, to that moment, to that particular moment. But yes, it's a bit like they're in some kind of constant loop, right?
Mhm.
They're how do you say this? Contradicting each other's sentences, contradicting their own opinion in a way. That's what was one of the interesting things, and also one of the kind of scary things for me. But the thing I love about the characters is that you showed them both like with individualism and with collective strength. You know, you showed both of the sides both of the combined sides to present the characters. So they gather at the same place. They stick together in a way, but they're very different individuals. You know, with some very bright critical thinking with some of them. And so I was very interested in watching this mix of individualism and collective strength, which gives this place gives it. It's like a gathering place for them. So maybe we can start with the place. Maybe you can tell us more about the place and about the characters from the place who work there, who are working there, and the characters who you decided to film inside the place.
Yeah, maybe it's a long answer because how we find how we found every character is a different story. But for the beginning, it's we for example, when we decided to use a split screen or double screen in the edition, one of the points were about is like they are always alone in the first shot, but with the split screen they are at the same time alone in their frame and with being part of a collectiveness with the other screen. There are many people in the bar speaking. No, there was this idea of being connected, but at the same time being alone with your speech. There was this idea of linking two crises, the 1992 crisis and the 2010 crisis, with the stories of the social class that suffered most. I mean, the working class. So at the beginning, my screenwriter and me, Raúl Liarte, is the screenwriter of the film, and also is the assistant director of the film, and appears in the film as waiter. Is the first guy that appears telling the dream of the miss in the school. So he was he was the waiter. So he was asking the questions that I was saying him by the walkie-talkie in the middle of the shooting. No, so we started to his father. He is from Cartagena, and his father is a worker of the shipyard in Navantia, the old Bazan. So we asked, and all his neighborhood is one of the main working class neighborhood of Cartagena. So his father told us that one of his mates, which is also a historian, which is Jose Ibarra, which is the one that in the film speaks about the death of his father and how he had an accident with 14 years old.
Oh, yes.
And the one who finished the film about speaking about the European Union.
And Syriza, the monologue.
Yeah. That's the one. He's a worker of the factory, but he's also a union leader and also a historian. And he was writing a book about the industrial crisis. So we met him, and he introduced us to all the original actors. I mean, the original union leaders of the 90s. So we started to meet them to collect their stories, because as this is a very, very forgotten event, we really didn't know what happened. And I was trying to do more than a fiction or reenactment film. So I was speaking to that people to to ask young people to perform like the original union leaders. That was the original idea. But when I met the original union leaders, the one that appeared in the last part of the film, I understand that their voices and their faces were so important and were so unknown that they had to be part of the film. So that made the film being more a straight documentary and not such a reenactment. I'm saying that because about the place, we all the time wanted to give the feeling that we could be in both times at the same time.
Exactly.
So yeah, so my uncle still lives in Cartagena, but lives in the outskirts. So I started to spend time in Cartagena, and I started to walk around, and then I found this bar, and it was amazing because they still have the the scores of the football league. I mean the results, the qualification of the football league of 1991, 1992, and 1993. So you have the real feeling that time stopped and that year. And then we managed to persuade them to make the film there. And some of the people that appears in the film are customers, are regular customers of that bar. And in that neighborhood, which is an underdeveloped neighborhood, very mixed, I mean, with workers, immigrants, different social groups happening at the same time, you have the feeling that you were not in the current time. I mean, you didn't see anybody to grab a cell phone. I mean, everybody was dressed as in the 90s. I mean, there was a strong atmosphere of another time.
And the people are smoking inside, which is prohibited now, or not?
Yeah. We decided it's prohibited since 2004 or 2005, but so we were trying to blur the lines of the current time and the 90s,
past and the present. Yeah.
And some of the people we invited to the film, I mean, after we were having these original people from the union fight, we made open castings in the working class neighborhoods, inviting people to tell their stories about their lives, about their work, about the projects they have. And then that was the way we made the casting of the rest. I mean, there are 45 characters, and we were picking up people from many places because their stories were interesting for us. But at the same time, they were dressed. I mean, there was Rebecca Duran was the head of custom, and they were a bit confused, the characters, because it was like, but we are going to speak about ourselves, but we are being disguised in a different way that we were dressed. And there was a very subtle strategy because the custom couldn't be absolutely from the 90s. I mean, the custom of the people had to be possibly in both times at the same time. I mean, they could look like the 90s, but they could look like also like now. And this was a very complex line to fix. So at the same time we are doing a documentary, the art, the photography, and the custom and the hairdresser were conceived to create the feeling that you are not sure sometimes if you are in the 90s or in the current times. And of course, smoking and the way they speak and the things they have, I wanted to connect that this social group, generation after generation, are experimenting the same circumstances, the same super long work. I mean, jornada. I mean, they are starting their work day at 8 a.m. and they are finishing at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. I mean, that you can see in the film that woman that was working 16 hours per day, all the days of the week, you can see that this young girl are having the same, I don't have the name in English, but the same.
Yeah, like, yeah, I understand. And I
Yeah.
think the audience will also, yeah. Yeah, so while I was watching, I was also wondering, is this like shifting of time? Is this the same time? Is this this should be the same line because of the no cell phones, television is old, the TV is like very old, but sometimes they mention euros as a currency, so that's how I like
Yeah.
switch back to the 21st century. But when you say script, did you intervene in terms of dialogue, or it was like completely? Did you just tell them to speak about some issue, or how controlled was it?
Yeah, I mean, we have like two poles, and one of them was filmed by Peter Watkins, for example, La Commune. That was one pole, and the other pole was filmed by Fred Weisman, for example. And we didn't know in which place of the line between the two poles was our film. I mean, for one, in a way, I wanted to do something very straight, very observational, just seeing two people speaking completely freely. But for many time, we were trying to think of reenacting or introducing fictions about that moment to base the 1992 more specifically. No? So we were writing some dialogues, and there were 8 or 9 fictional sequences with actors, but they didn't appear in the final cut of the film, because every time we made a casting, everything that a participant or a character told us about their livings were much more interesting, much more vivid, much more true than anything that Raúl and me could write. So in the end, the script was the main point of the script was making a casting, deciding which question ask. I mean, which topics we wanted them to speak about or debate.
Yeah.
And something very, very complex that was really makes me a lot of headache was who has to speak to who. Now I have 45 people, but how do I have to mix them to make them speak and behave in unpredictable ways? No, that was very, very complex for me, because we wanted them to speak to people, giving the impression that they have intimacy with that people.
So there was no groups who are really friends in real life. Everything is like grouped.
For example, there are people that are actual friends. For example, the four students that are in the 20s that are started playing cards, that are the ones that are in the night party, they are actual friends.
Okay.
The 2 boys workers that speaks at the beginning about doing the military service, and then they are part of the big table group.
Yeah, the 1,000 euros fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
The fight about I don't belong, I don't deserve more money. And no, when they started to fight a lot, because they are speaking about doing strikes or not. I mean, that you have the young woman, the guy with the bird, and the other two. No, these are two of them are friends, but the young woman doesn't know them at all. She know them in that moment, and the guy in the bird that has the final dream, he walked. He slightly knew one of them, but very very little. So some moments were created at the moment, and you have the feeling that they know for a long time, but they are knowing that in the day of the shooting. For example, there is a moment where this young woman worker speaks about how they had to stop studying and working with her dad and having this very long day work. And the girl she's speaking about with long dark hair and white face, that is the assistant director of the film.
Okay. Wow.
And the girl with curly hair is speaking about her father died in the protest.
Yes.
And she said that I don't remember it, but I also experimented it because I'm suffering the consequences. That's the assistant of casting of the film. Because we were preparing the casting and she was there and she told us that the story, and then we decided, hey, do you mind if you tell this in the film? And the historian that speaks in the film about the history of Cartagena, of the Roman Empire, and that is the one of the head of the castings also. I mean, I also tried to include part of the crew or part of the friends or people that, for example, many people that appear in the films that were people that Raúl were finding in concerts or a squatter house or just walking in Cartagena, and he looked at somebody that could be interesting and started to speak to. So we were just living in the city and always being alert, but at the same time, as everybody was picked up of different places, we really didn't know how to make them be. So sometimes we decided to speak, hey, you have to speak to the assistant director, which we felt that you have good vibes between you.
Wow.
But it was, it's not a science. You have to feel the two woman housewives. One of them is a housewife, the other woman works in a cleaning company. That they are neighbors and they are speaking about that they cannot buy the Spanish tomatoes and all that.
Yeah.
They didn't know at all.
Tomatoes, yeah.
They didn't know at all. They met 1 minute before the shooting. And they speak like they are neighbors that are seeing it in the street every day, for example. I mean, I was amazed of being able of creating this intimacy just because they are, I don't know. We tried to that the cafeteria was a real cafeteria. I don't want to have wires or lamps or many people inside the set. So in the set there were only the two cameras, Sarah and Jorge, that were very far away from the conversations. I mean, they were in every corner of the bar, and the rest of the crew was inside the kitchen of the bar. So and we spent a lot of time with them. I mean, maybe 2 hours or 3 hours. So after
they were opening.
After 2 or 3 beers, they forgot that they were in a shooting.
And you said you shot it with two cameras,
Yeah.
and how was it set up for every scene? Like, because sometimes when in the film there are two screens and one is like introduction of another person while the other is talking, but sometimes there is a scene when they're both talking to each other in two screens. So I guess you shot all the scenes, like all the characters talking. You shot them with two cameras, all the scenes.
No, not really. We were shooting with two cameras when we have groups and we have conversations. But we made one morning, we invited all the cast and invited some friends, and we made a kind of party just as because the owners of the cafeteria, which appears in the film and are the actual owners, the woman, the cook woman, and the man with the white hair. I mean, the family that have lunch together, and they were retiring. They were they were going to close the bar after our shooting. Mm-hmm. So we made this huge party to put a lot of people from the cast and of friends of us, my uncles, my cousins that live in Cartagena, Raúl's parents, no? And we made this big aperitivo, which is the moment before the lunch at 1 p.m. that everybody goes to drink beers to the bars in Spain. I mean, to have tapas. And so we create this very, very huge collective moment. And I'm saying that because some of the things that you see in the left screen of customers speaking about things, they were all shot in one moment. But then we gave the impression with the edition that are happening at the same time that somebody is speaking in the table. So not every sequence is. I mean, not, when you see the double screen sequence, sometimes when they are speaking between them in the two screens, that is recorded at the same time, synchronized.
One shot, then divided. But
no. It's two different screens, two different cameras. But in other places, we reconstruct in addition the feeling that this synchronicity. I mean, somebody speaking to the waiter in the bar, and another people playing the jackpot. No, so when we decided to do the split screen, we had to try to synchronize both screens, even though what is shot, what happens in one screen was shot in a very, very different moment of what's happening in the right screen. I'm not sure if I
understand.
So so I shot with two cameras, maybe 60% of the situations. I mean, when I only spoke to one person, I only use one camera.
Yes, and in terms of editing, when something really should be accented or something really disturbing or very important for the film happens, then you shift just to one screen. That's what I noticed.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, we will talk about the editing process maybe, but before that's one of the questions. But also the logic behind two screens. I was thinking about it as how should I say this? Like, because you're interested in these pockets of history, which are not like mainstream narration of history. So you're trying to create a puzzle in a way. So it's still like divided in a way. So that was my logic behind the two screens also. Is it right or it's just my impression?
I mean, we when the editor assistant synchronized the image and the sound, the sequences that have two cameras, they were put into the screens just to make to be able to watch it just in one row. I mean, not watching one camera and then watching the same sequence again with the second camera. And then we watched these two screens put together of the two cameras sequences. And in the very first moment, the editor and me decided to do it in that way. So it was a decision of the first days of the edition. And I mean, it allowed us to make the experience of being in this space more immersive in a way. And because, I mean, it's very fluid, the way that, I mean, the experience that I have thinking of the film, going every morning to a cafeteria and listening to conversations. I mean, looking to one people, but then listening to another people and then focusing to another place. There was something of the split screen that were much more closer to that experience. And about the puzzle, this is the first, that's the first moment, the first time I listened to it. I didn't have this idea, but at the same time, I have this idea that could be connected to that of linking in every moment the individual with the collectivity. I mean, just in one aspect, and yeah. There were a lot of another issues that were interested for me. I mean, the film, the experience of watching the film several times changes all the time, because it's like the sight of the looking of every spectator deals more freely in this very, very big panoramic two screens. And at the same time, there is something that I like very much, is that you can, when two people are speaking to each other, you can see both eyes of everybody listening to the other. So you can collect, I mean, it's like the experience of the conversation is much more linked in this way of a split screen, because you are looking the complete face of two people speaking at the same time. You can do it with one screen, but it's impossible. You cannot, if you want to have them speaking to, I mean, looking at their eyes of the other people, to get, and we as a spectator being able of watching their reactions. I mean, not being in profile, but in 3/4 of. So in a way, it make the atmosphere of conversation, of staying a lot of time inside a bar more. I don't like realistic as an adjective, but I'm sorry, I don't find a better word in English.
And if I'm not mistaken, the only shot or image which is not like two screens is the image of the parliament on fire, right? At the end.
Well, there is one moment in the end, but there are 3 moments in the film that the frame is in the center, that are the three dreams.
The dreams, yes.
Yeah.
In middle and the end, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about.
It was very, very difficult, the edition. I mean,
yeah, I was thinking
the editing was
how long should it take to make this? You know, it's really. I mean, if you go through all the material and then again reconnect it in the editing with another thing, I mean, it must have been really, really long journey.
Yeah, because sometimes the waiter is saying hi to somebody that is entering in the cafeteria, and then in the other screen you see people entering. So you have the feeling of that is happening. Everybody's having breakfast, but that's not happening at all. I mean, all these synchronized moments had to be constructed in the editing process. All the beginning of the film with the breakfast, that was a shot when the bar was open, that there were the real customers. I mean, the conversation of the old lady that had her eye explode. All that was shot with one camera when the bar was open in a very, very quick way. And that is mixed with shootings that were made after the bar was closed, when nobody, because in the end, in the principal shooting, the people were speaking alone in the bar. The bar was empty. But we wanted all the time to give the impression that there are customers in the bar. In a way, I don't know the English out of field fuera de campo, when you in cinema, when you have everything that happens outside the frame.
Yes, like off.
Yeah. There were also theoretical conversation between Sergio, the editor, and me, because it was like the second screen is the off, or not, or the off is the spectator. How are we? It's like we were building a triangle between the two screens and the spectator. I mean, it was many, and then when the sound appeared, how the off sound of the bar had to sound, how was the connection between what you are watching and what you are looking at and what you are listening to was complex. We decided to, well, it's very long, but the off sound was the one of the camera of the screen, which is not the main screen. Well, it was really difficult in a technical and also in a concept theoretical thing. Yeah. I'm tired. I'm still tired of the of the edition that we went there. We were there for 8 months last year, and I think I'm still tired of that process.
So I won't bother you any longer about that. Maybe I would like to ask you just about the archive material of the protests. It really, because of the way you made the rest of the film, it really moves me when it comes to this, because I imagine all those people I saw before, that they're being beaten or harassed or whatever the word is. So it's really a moving moment, because before and after that you observe those people who you knew that they were, many of them were there. So yes, I was just asking. I wanted to ask you about was it difficult to find the archive? How did you get the rights easily because it's police brutality? Or
we were lucky because in that time there was a local television in Cartagena, and this footage comes from the local television, and they were really nice, because they were okay of sharing this footage with us, because the national television and other national channels had recorded them, but they didn't allow us to watch it or to try to find them or to use them. I mean, I couldn't use it for the film because I wasn't allowed to watch it. I mean, it's very maybe because of these images of police brutality. And there are also pictures that are more hard, of the blood bleeding people, or the people that are put inside the trucks and being beaten up inside the police trucks, not to avoid people to watch it. The police was really beaten up also. They had as injured people as the workers and the civil. But it's really, really, really violent. As I told you, this part of the Spanish history was so unknown that one of the first things that we wanted to achieve was look into footage. And we found this footage thanks to, helped by the workers, the original union leaders. The one in the glasses, Tano, arrived one day with a VHS cassette, and it belonged to one worker that was recording from the TV every day. And that was maybe one of the last tapes that was the only copy that was from, a VHS cassette, and they were trusting me enough to share with me this only copy. And so I was able to watch different footages from Jose Ibarra, from the historian, that knew one old man that have a DVD with different, or home videos of different people. And after that, the local television was digitizing their footage, and then we were allowed to watch it and to have it for the film. But I'm saying this to transmit or to communicate how difficult it was to understand what happened, to understand the story, because after the book of Ibarra, Ibarra was writing this book, and he was the one who introduces us, and he appears in the film. But before that, we only have this book that were a collection of the articles of one journalist on one of the main newspapers of Murcia. And then there were 2 videos in YouTube about this thing, but there was no information at all, no academic articles, or not another book. So it was really, really having the feeling of reaching or looking to a place that nobody wanted to look. And I remember the first day we put the camera in the camera test with the open bar. When we put the camera, Raúl, the screenwriter, said to me, "I'm not sure if the film is going to be okay, but we are putting the camera in a place that nobody has visited, or nobody has shot here in 100 years, and nobody is shooting here anymore. Because this is one of the first films that has been shot in the region of Murcia, because it's so underdeveloped that they are not having any support. They are not supporting at all film, or so we had to do it, and it was really difficult to fund this film, because nobody shoots in that place, because they are not supporting or financial helps at all. That we knew that the strength of this film was arriving to characters and people that nobody pay attention. And about what you said at the beginning of this question, some of the people that appears in the last part of the film you can identify them in in the footage.
Archive material footage, yeah.
Two of them, and it's very, very, very sad. It's very, very sad how they are running, or they are trying to take their mate workers out of the danger of the rubber balls, I don't know the name of the. Yeah, so yeah, it was a very. I mean, every day of shooting, every people from the crew had it was a very strong emotional experience. I mean, the emotion that you have when you see the film, we all also have it in the shooting. So we finished the shooting very, very exhausted, because in the end there are funny moments, but there is an incredibly amount of pain inside these stories. And some women, for example, there were women of leaders of the associations of wives workers. We only have one, Josefina, which is the one who speaks about feminism in the 70s, and that has the last words in the epilogue of the film. She tried to ask to some of their female mates, but she couldn't even speak to us, because she said that it was so painful that they were even they weren't able to speak about it 30 years later.
Yes, and this sentence from one of the union leaders, I don't know his name, but when he's speaking about how the governor, the mayor, the socialist governor was hiding in his office, that was one of the moving moments of the film, because you can see that it still disturbs him after 30 years. You can see in his in the way he's talking about that. So I guess these scars are really deep.
Yeah,
those people. So I think we covered a lot of the process on the film. If you have something to add, maybe, or
no, well, I appreciate, and I want to thank you for inviting the film. And I'm very sorry not being able to travel to Belgrado. I hope I will be I will have the possibility of going them. And well, I'd like to see how Serbian audience reacts to the film, because one of the most surprising aspects of the screenings in Rotterdam, I had the feeling that people in the south part of the Southern Europe or in the Eastern Europe could be linked to some aspect of the film. Also the Latin American audiences. But it was very surprising that the Eastern audiences, people from Japan, Korea, or China, were also moved by the film. They were, after the screenings, they come and said to me, "Oh my God, we are having the same situation in Japan." And it was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know what was going on in Japan." And then the surprising, I tried to connect the film, and the last part of the film speaks about the future of the work, and also the future of the European project. That is like, it has to be more aware of the needs of the citizenship, because the other possibility is having far-right parties inside the governments of the European countries. So we have this international and global aspect of the film, but it was surprising that it also could touch audiences from very, very far away. So I'm very sorry to not being able to travel there, and I hope you enjoy, all the audiences have enjoyed the film.
Yes, thank you so much for your spare time with us and for your for this beautiful conversation. So maybe now we will finish our BelTalks about the film The Year of the Discovery. And thank you, Luis. And I hope this invitation for film about your parents' trip to Serbia will happen sometime in the future. Actually, Yugoslavia, ex-Yugoslavia. That was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, in October of 1980.
Yeah, so Yugoslavia. Okay, thank you so much and take care and hope to see you soon somewhere.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.